Everyone wants to get to the high places, but if you want to go high, you first have to go deep. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Deep Ends. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff today. I have a lot of questions for the person who's hanging out with us. Let me just share a little bit about Bradley Gibb. I'm going to talk about you like you're not in the room. So he's put over $100 million of client money into life insurance, 1,600 clients in your book of business right now, master's in accounting. You have also degrees in two other things. Economics. You're very smart. Basically, we'll just write very, very smart underneath your bio. You were on Wall Street in 2008, which has gotta have been crazy. And then you have 6 kids.
That's the biggest.
Which is a lot. Dude, that's a lot of kids. I have 2, which is a third of 6. I'm just showing you my math skills.
But it's also 300% fewer children. That's the way to look at that. It's
Dude,
not just like, numbers, it's orders of magnitude difference.
So my wife, a couple of weeks ago, she's like, "Hey, you remember I'm going to New York for this business conference?" And I said, "Oh, you didn't tell me you're going to New York." And she said, "Yes, I did. I even put it in your calendar." So I go and I look and I was like, "Oh no, she got me." But my parents are out of town. Sometimes I'll bring my parents in if she's out of town. Our nanny's out of town. And then one of the sitters we use. So I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to survive Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with both kids by myself. And Friday was great. I'm like, yo, this is easy. I don't even know what Lindsay does all day. Like, this is crazy. Lindsay, she's an entrepreneur. So I'm like, like, of course you can do both. Saturday was a little bit rougher. Kate started sensing weakness and taking advantage of me. And then Sunday night, I'll walk around the corner and Harrison, my 1-year-old, was like literally eating dog food. And
I was going to say, what, did you just like lay the Cheerio box out and be like, just come and eat?
He didn't want to eat his food. He wanted to eat the dog's food. And he crawled around and ate the dog food. And you know what? I was just like, all right.
At this point,
I have no more stamina to even take the dog food. If you want to eat that, go eat that. That's fine. And Lindsay came home just in time.
There is nothing more humbling, right? If you think you actually do the work, like my wife works and I just go make money and I have the easy job.
Yes.
Out of the two of that. And if you want it proven, have your wife leave for a weekend.
Yes.
Because our goal is to just survive, not even develop them as human beings. It's just keep everyone alive.
Yeah.
Can 100%. You do that for me? Great.
That's a human. We are going to get into economics, but just on that note, like sometimes with leaders in companies, if there are 2 leaders that are sort of having a beef, I'll make them switch places.
Ooh.
And I've only done this twice. In both times, they both developed a newfound sudden respect for the other person. I was like, you're in finance, you're upset about sales, missing projections, you're on sales tomorrow. Take some calls. And then they're all like, okay, this is fine. We did that one day at TF, and it was
that's good.
It was a wild experience. One of the controllers. I can't say who it is. All right, so we're going to talk about. I've got questions for you because we're in a weird economic half recession, but we keep revising and we won't want to call it a recession. And so you were in Wall Street in 2008. Maybe help compare, contrast a little bit. Like where are we? Like, are we headed that direction?
I think we're past the tipping point. So there's no.
Okay.
There's no, like, you know, when a kid, you're riding a bike down a hill and it goes faster and faster, your handlebars start to shake. You're like, I think, and then like our handlebars are going and we're going over the handlebars at some point. How long we can hold it together, that's continued to surprise me. But we're past the point of catching ourselves and balancing again.
Okay. Do you mean like Ray Dalio's like 70-year correction, or do you mean just this current recession?
I think we're seeing, and we'll probably go through some of those because you and I have talked about them. I think there are 4 or 5 massive 50, 60, 70-year trends that are all reversing right now. And I think that's what makes this more unique than some of the other ones. Because 08 was big, but it wasn't the reversal yet of the 70-year trend. And now that's playing out along with societal reverses in trends, and generational reverses in trends that are then going to compound on top of it.
Yeah, and we're adding $1 trillion in debt. How often?
I mean, like every time you blink. Yeah. Like we just a $7 trillion budget. is what Biden just tried to approve.
All right, this is the first time we've talked about this on this show, but am I allowed to deviate a little bit?
Go for it.
Isn't it your show? You have to ask permission.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm like, I don't want to get banned at the same
There
time.
you go.
So
What lanes?
how is President Biden still in charge?
Either he never was, which is its own can of worms, or again, everybody. I mean, it's the same as Romans. Like, they loved the fact that they were spent into total and abject poverty. They were asking for it.
Was it called
all the way through bread and circuses?
The pillaging of the treasury phase in the macro.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that, I mean, or the founder said, as soon as the people realize they can vote themselves the content of everyone else's pockets, democracy's doomed.
Look up the quote real fast on what Henry Ford said about banking. It's something like, if the people, do you know this quote?
Yep.
If the people of the
They
country
would revolt tomorrow.
ever understood the banking system, they would revolt.
Tomorrow.
It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking military system. For if they did, I believe there'd be a revolution before tomorrow morning.
There would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. So they would strike revolution from the record, because that's what will get us banned. But there's doesn't seem to be a way out of this one. We can't keep borrowing from tomorrow. The last election, 2 election cycles ago, the big thing was seemed to be China. China was going to overtake our economy. Ray Dalio wrote a whole book on this. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. What's up with that?
So that is, I think, one of the biggest misses that people have been afraid of is China's worse off than we are. They're running bigger deficits than we are. They're building more roads to nowhere than we are. Like, their economy is more fake and propped up than ours is, which means it's almost the same phenomenon that happened with Russia. Like, the only thing that came out of the arms race and the space race is they went bankrupt first.
Yeah.
And because they were centrally controlled and not enough information to know what was really happening inside of their economy, if you're in a spending war with 2 countries, whichever one leans more free market will win, because the other one can't plan fast enough.
You mean communism doesn't work?
Communism doesn't work very well.
What about socialism?
It's worse. They're both bad. And then they have a massive population swing coming. And this is the one that I haven't even pulled on all the threads of where this is going to go. Because, I mean, they lived under a one-child regime forever. And when you unravel the population pyramid of stuff, like, they don't have enough people coming back in to replace what's going to be there. So there's plenty of people that have written and talked about China's going to collapse in 25 years. 20 years.
Isn't Japan's in a similar predicament with their population? Because I think what people don't realize, and you can speak to this, is like, people are actually almost treated as currency units. Like, people are the energy supply of a country. And Japan, so a country that's running out of energy is running out of future. So Japan, their currency is all messed up too, and they don't have enough people coming in to replace the production. So
all but one economy that has exceeded about 130% debt to GDP has full on collapsed.
What is that one economy?
Japan.
Okay.
But what nobody knows about Japan, so like, ask your friendly stockbroker, the market always goes up, right? If there's a crash, what do they say? Don't worry, we're in it for the long run. Yeah. Do you know that Japan's market, their public markets, have still not recovered from when it collapsed in the 90s? They have not gone back. So we collapsed in 99, and then it came back in 08, and then we collapsed, and then we're above that, and then right. But we've continued to find new plateaus. Theirs has not recovered to its peak in the 90s because their debt is so high, and their production, their workforce is so low that they're just in this
perpetual plateau.
Perpetual plateau.
Yeah. How is if you get bored, please let me know, because I read this stuff the way that most people probably watch
The Hunger Games.
Yeah. To me, this is like the most fascinating thing.
Yeah.
But what my question is why? Because I do trading for fun. I've been trying to find hobbies that don't pay me, and I keep figuring out ways to make my hobbies make money. So I'm I trade because it's like a video game. Dude, the markets are setting these records, and I'm what is wrong with people? How are we still all-time highs on certain things when the rates are as high? It's almost like the market, this feels different because the people are not responding to data the right way.
Except I thought we were in a frenzy, right? The very last stage of a bubble is that frenzy, right? Think back to 2006 when you got in a cab, because Ubers didn't exist then, but you got in a cab and your cabbie was giving you advice about the house you just flipped and made 20 grand. That's when you knew you're like, whatever this is, we got to get out of it.
Which is like Bitcoin 3 years ago.
That's really where we are now, is we're in that frenzy part of it to where everybody's caught up in it has to be now. There isn't another opportunity. We're all going for it. Everyone's excited and nobody sees the iceberg coming. So I'm surprised it just keeps extending. The only thing I'm surprised about is the length of time. Yeah. Like it should have happened a long time ago. I thought COVID was going to crush it. And the fact that we somehow pulled out of that is still a mystery to me.
Do you think that creating 20% of the money supply had anything to do with that?
Well, and that's...
Kick the can.
And people look... It's a longer delay than people really think. That money can be created, but it has to then work its way into the consumer's pockets, which is now happening, which is why they feel a little bit rich or capable or all of that. And now we're really going to see the push of it. So we don't have inflation under control. They are reporting that we do, but they reported that we had the housing thing under control in 2007.
Yeah.
And the Fed chair just came out. They're like, hey, we achieved this, the long desired dream of the soft landing. We've done it. That means we're in trouble. If the Federal Reserve is claiming victory, you know that we're in trouble.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second because I'm really interested in your thoughts on it. But can you give us I'm going to chat GPT you for a second. You go into chat GPT, you're like, explain, astrophysics as if I'm a 6-year-old. Can you give us a quick rundown of money supply, velocity, trickle-down economics? Like how does money, because money's not printed,
right?
How is it created and how does it make its way to the consumer? How does it all work?
So the hardest distinction is, so the Federal Reserve is not federal and it doesn't have any reserves. So that's the hardest thing. But this is just double speak.
Great.
Right? So it's neither of the two words that it really is. So it's actually a private organization. Then we have the Treasury. So the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are separate. So the Treasury spends all of the money, but it can't make it. That's the only last thread, and we unwound that thread in 2008, unfortunately. Everybody missed the fact that we put the last final printing press piece in place in 2008 to really screw ourselves over. We had controls in place essentially before then. But those two are the ones to understand. So the Federal Reserve creates currency, creates the actual money, and the Treasury is the demand to then go spend it. So you could print as much money as you wanted as long as nobody got it. That doesn't affect anything. It's not until it's in the economy that we have a problem. The other part that's misunderstood about this is inflation isn't an increase in prices. That's like saying I'm sick with a fever. You don't have a fever, you have some virus that is causing a fever, right? That's the symptom. The real problem is we have more money chasing the same number of goods. So if you print a bunch of money, there aren't any more factories producing any more cars, but everybody has more money. Thus, all money has to clear at some point. Money is an investment. It's not something you hold on to. You use it to transact. And so at some point in time, all of that money will be circulating. And if you have $100 and I have $100 and there's one coconut in the economy to buy, what's the price of the coconut? It's $100. But if we put $1,000 in each of our wallets and there's still only one coconut to buy, what's the price of a coconut? It's now $1,000. So it all has to do with the rate of money printing.
Without an equitable increase in production.
Correct.
Because if the money supply increases and production increases,
then the prices can stay stable.
It checks out.
Yep. But what's missed there, and this is a side tangent, that's the theft of inflation. If we get better at making things, the price should go down.
Deflation.
A truly prosperous economy should be a deflationary economy because then we all benefit from the accumulated knowledge. How much easier is it to make a car now than it was 100 years ago? Yet even if they cost the same, it would still be robbing the public of our increased production capacity.
Right.
So prices, the most honest is prices should be going down. But if they stayed the same, you're right, our production would be equaling the increase in money supply.
And the reason that I think you use the word theft on the theft of inflation is because in this scenario, tax rates can go down and the government's still collecting more money. Because things are now more expensive.
And beyond that, now back to the trickle down part, right? The prices don't go up equally or at the same time. What happens is, so the Treasury asks for money and the Federal Reserve prints it. And then it has to get into the economy some way, somehow, right? So the Treasury actually now borrows it from the Federal Reserve. And now there's a debt instrument in place. And then they start spending the money into the economy. But they don't helicopter it across everybody equally. It's spent by those. So there's a phrase, if you want to get wealthy in an inflationary economy, just get as close to the printing press as possible. Because the first person that gets the money, the rest of the economy hasn't adjusted its prices. So I have money that I didn't create through production, but I get to go spend it on stuff where the prices haven't adjusted. And it's the very last person that gets the money that gets it, and prices have already gone up, so they're not getting any benefit. So it's theft that a small group benefits from the. So if you had a printing press in your basement, you would print for yourself,
which is illegal, by the way.
Which is illegal. We don't do that.
I don't have a printing press in my.
But if you did, you would print it for yourself, and then your family, and then your friends, and they would all benefit. But then once it gets disseminated out through, it's at the cost of everybody else because you bought the stuff before they could buy it with all the rest of the money.
Jake, does this make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, just making sure.
So it's the interaction of those. So when you're looking for inflation, you have to ask yourself not just, you have to ask how is it going to fall down into the economy?
Okay.
What's up? What are you thinking?
Does it make sense?
This makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you guys think, like how does this affect, like there's so many people who are like, okay, they ignore the news and they know that the world's going to crap and like this type of stuff makes sense. But what type of effect does that have on people? Like, is there really anything for people to change? Like you and me right now, like I can get all this information, but do I need to go home and start buying different types of groceries? Like why
does it matter?
Yeah, does it matter? And what does that actually do to my life? Like why does it matter?
That's the question.
That's
the
a
most
great
important question. So now that we know how all of this stuff works,
just for the record,
what do we do
he's
about it?
texting me, and I want you to say it.
Got you.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
because you're one of the best connection points to like, what do we do with this? You know, so like, how does somebody use this? How does somebody use this information to make their lives actually better? Right. Before we get there, I wrote that down. I get to it. How bad can it actually get? Like, take us down that for a second. I'm curious personally, what could this look like? Because you had hyperinflation in Germany towards the end of, was it World War I in between World War II?
Yeah.
It was before, because that's what really triggered.
That's what kicked off World War II.
Honestly, that's why Hitler came to power, is because people were literally starving to death. They couldn't afford food.
Yep.
So like, do we have any checks and balances to prevent that scenario here?
No, not anymore. Now that we can monetize our own debt. So before, the problem with printing more money is there had to be a private borrower. You and I had to use the money and get it into circulation. So it was difficult for them to put it into the economy.
Okay.
But now that the Fed used to not be able to buy public assets. They couldn't buy the treasury bills. And then they couldn't go in. This is what changed in 08. Do you remember when they bought all the mortgage-backed securities? They bought all the toxic assets, and we're going to hold on to them until they're worth something, and we're going to fix this. That was the big shift, that they can actually then control a balance sheet. They didn't have a balance sheet before.
Yeah.
So now that this loop has been created between the Fed and the Treasury, that separation of power, if you want to call it that, is now collapsed, and they can print at any rate that they want, which is why whatever it is, 2/3 of all the money ever created has been created. I don't know, you might want to look that up, fact check me on it, but whatever percentage has been created in the last 4 years, that's why that loop got closed.
Well, it was 20% just during COVID.
Yeah.
And
of all the money
going.
that had ever been created since the beginning of money.
Yeah, 100%. In your opinion, do you feel that Powell, who's the Fed chair, he's kind of hanging on to the rates the way that they are? That seems to be a healthy move, yes?
Yeah. The last thing we want is rates to go down. That would be the worst. We don't want rates to go down. A healthy economy sits at 5, 6, 7%. Like that's what it should be at. That's what the time value of money and the cost of money really should be, which is what interest rates are.
375% increase of money supply in the last 3 years.
Insanity.
Yeah. So we can't actually fix inflation that way.
No.
So
that is inflation. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is they tried to solve inflation by putting more money into that's like trying to fix a fever by putting you in an ice bath. Well, your temperature's too high. Let's bring your temperature down. But we're not actually fixing.
We used to do
thing.
that though.
And it worked really well. We also used to do bloodletting and
leeches. Yeah. We could go back to that. So you've talked a lot about the credit crisis, which is looming. What is that? Explain what that is.
So, there's a lot. There's lots of places to go down, but I think the pendulum swing that we're talking about, like Ray Dalio's long cycles, right? Is we've been in a downward trend since the late 80s, early 90s. So we've been in a 30 or 40 year just steady decrease in interest rates. And that has all kinds of effects on the economy and business and everything. Just the fact that there's a macro trend happening. There's kind of the adage in the trading world that if you're trading against a macro trend, it doesn't matter, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter how good of a trader you are. If you're trading against a trend, you cannot win.
Yeah.
So similar, if you're buying in line with the trend, then you also can't lose. And that's what people have been doing for 40 years, and they've forgotten what it means to build a business when rates are where they are. They forget about what it means to buy or invest in real estate or engage in capital projects or whatever that would be because of this macro trend.
Is there that's going to hit consumers more, it's going to hit the lower class first. So the crisis effect is trickle up, correct?
It's going to be. And see, the last time we had a credit crisis, there wasn't $2 trillion in student loans. There wasn't whatever there is in auto loans and credit cards and all of that. And you go backwards, this credit crisis is stacked. Because like in the 1970s, only like 50% of people had mortgages and they had no other debt. Because you couldn't get debt. Like to get a credit card, you remember the machine you had to like put the card in and chunk and like sign, like credit was difficult.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of it. Now, every time we've had a crisis, we've added credit on top of it, and now everybody has a mortgage, and then now everybody has car loans, everybody has student loans, and now everybody has credit cards. Like there isn't more borrowing to be able to continue this along, which is why it's going to end up being a credit crisis. And if I can't borrow anymore, then I have to curb consumption to pay off the debt. That's the definition of paying off debt. Is debt is consumption today, pay for it tomorrow. Right. Deleveraging is the reverse of that. I have to give up something today to pay off the debt. So we have to push that off.
So you're saying we have to not spend more than what we have budgeted to spend or what's available for us
than what we've produced.
But when you get into modern monetary theory and Keynesian economics, they don't agree that there should be a budget.
Right.
So these are smart people. Like the book, I think it's just called Money on MMT. Or no, it's called Capital. Have you heard of this book?
Who wrote it?
Let's look it up.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's wrong, but...
MMT just entirely is?
Entirely in general, it's wrong. It's wrong in the same way, very.
You know who wrote it? Never mind. I'm not... Okay, I gotta say who wrote it now. The first version of Capital was written by Karl Marx.
There you go.
Who was he?
Yeah, the founder of capitalism. Or, I mean, not
socialism.
Socialism. Communism.
Communism, okay. So, but we're running on an MMT system.
Yeah.
Which is, what is MMT in a nutshell?
It's that essentially it gives basis to a fiat currency, which is a currency by decree, by law. Fiat means by law. So it's just a currency created and organized and run by the government as a tool to be a lever in managing the two prime directives of the Federal Reserve is maximum employment and stable prices. And they're trying to balance those two things. Whereas the other side of the conversation would be a a hard currency, right? A gold-backed currency or an
saleable
external
currency. Yeah.
currency to manage. And we don't use money as the lever. We use actual economic and interactive policies to work to manage it. But anybody with a bent toward thinking I can control human nature and other people, like that's why really, really smart people can fall into this trap is they think they know better.
Yeah.
And they think that they can change human nature or control or make decisions on behalf of. And so all of it on paper works out really, really well because we can justify and argue into anything that we want. But it's never actually worked. We haven't had a stable currency. We haven't protected prices. We've only, I mean, since the wage for the average person since 1972 has gone nowhere. It's gone down. So no, this has not been successful. And the gap in wealth is all a result of monetary theory. But because it backs the argument that we need a strong centralized government with a few number of people in charge that benefit from that, it's of course the preferred theory. And then that's why it's taught in colleges. That's why. So does the math? Have you ever seen the skit from Abbott and Costello, where it's 13 times 7? You should look it up. It's really funny. So he uses math to say, it's 13 times 7 is 28. And he proves it with division, with addition, with all these different ways, but he's just doing the math wrong. But when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
We should put that in.
It's really funny.
People can watch it.
But that's the error with modern monetary theory.
Okay,
they're doing math.
They're doing it wrong. Okay, so quick tie-in because I hear your point.
Yeah, we need to get back to this question.
So this is the thing, and I just want to set the stage on this. We talk a lot about money because money is really important. We talked about this literally 2 videos ago. There's a verse in the Old Testament, my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. So if you're watching this and it doesn't really make sense, that's a great thing. Because that means that you're being exposed to something that is giving you the context and the basis for understanding. So let's talk about that. Let's dive into it. I don't want people to leave just because they're like, well, this Brad's a genius and I don't really understand these words. My family went bankrupt in 2009. And so I had the opportunity to start learning some things that I had never thought I was going to have to learn. How did we go bankrupt? Why did this happen? Everyone went bankrupt in 2009. Everyone was losing their houses and their businesses and everything. And so let me just explain this concept and then we'll tie it back into Jake. I want you guys to have a discussion about this so that we can bring it close to home. When you look at the history of currency, I think the first recorded currency was rocks, like a rye stone. And if I wanted to buy something from you and I had like a really big rye stone, you would just come over and we would like take a hammer and like put your name into the rye stone and ownership would transfer. So this is one of the basic building blocks of currency. It's got to have a ability to transfer ownership. If you can't transfer ownership, it's not a currency. But then there's a problem because what if I have a really big rye stone and I'm trying to buy a goat from you? I'm not giving you that whole rye stone. You need a piece of the rye stone, but I'm not going to break. So there's no fractionalization. It needs
to be divisible.
There's no divisibility, so you can't use that as a currency. So then we moved into like beads and different trinkets. Finally, was the Roman Empire the first recorded metals?
Way before that. Yes.
So we started using metals. Rome fell because they were changing the value of the metals arbitrarily. So
if you pull out a quarter and you look at, there's little ribbed edges on it.
Yeah.
That's a throwback that nobody knows. They started putting those on during the Romans because what the Romans would do is they would collect taxes and then they would shave off the edge of the coin, hopefully so much that you wouldn't know, and then they'd put it back into circulation. They'd melt all the rest down and have more money. This is how they debased the currency. Yeah. So they started that way. And so then they started putting an imprint around the edge of it so you could tell if somebody clipped the edges of the coin. That's where that comes from. And then they started mixing in other metals. And then you started having to weigh the coin to know whether it still had it. That was the original source of inflation and debasement of currency.
So you have the human species trying this experiment over and over and over again.
It's never worked.
All of them fail.
Every single time.
And then we get into we get into the gold standard, where it's like, we're not doing this anymore. There's got to be something backing the value of a currency. And when you have something like this, I think that it means the currency it's called salability. It's hard to make, like gold is a saleable asset. I think gold grows by like 3 to 4% a year, and we can't get it to grow by 375%. We can't do it.
And it takes resources out of the economy to create new
100%.
money, keeping production and money supply in balance.
Yeah, which regulates itself. It's self-regulating. So when we have a currency where it is saleable and it's difficult to make more of it, and you can't really make more of it than what's supposed to happen, people would just keep money, and their money would become more valuable as generations pass. So like, you give an inheritance to your kids. This is very biblical. You could just give them money, and that was an investment. We flipped it in the 70s, where now money is guaranteed to go down in value.
Yep.
So the money that you have in your account right now, it's the most valuable it will ever be.
Today.
Next week, it will be less valuable. The week after, it will be less valuable. And so we flipped the time preference of money. Now we are incentivized to get rid of money, because we know in the future it's going to be less valuable. So we're in this spot now where people are really focused on like accumulating cash. And what you're doing is you're guaranteeing poverty at some point in the future. The accumulation of cash guarantees that you have less in 10 years than you do now. So now we have currency swapping, where you need to get rid of cash, put it into a piece of real estate or into an investment, with the hopes that we can reset the time preference of money. Does this make sense? What do we do with this if someone's just working, trying to become financially prosperous, and the entire system is literally rigged against them?
I think the thread we ought to pull on that you hit on is the key to preserving wealth in inflationary times is converting currency into assets.
Okay.
So we got to answer the question, well, what asset?
Yeah.
Because income follows assets. The more assets you have, the more income that you're able to produce, the more wealth you're able to create. So we have to go from transacting in order to consume to we have to be able to figure out a way to create an asset that increases our productive capacities. That really becomes the key, is if we can figure out what assets to get our hands on, that becomes the transition.
Yeah.
And wealth in recessions doesn't disappear, it just transfers, and more frequently actually consolidates, which is why the biggest fortunes always get made in recessions. And it's because those people figured out what assets to be in, of where the money will end up.
Question on that. There's a lot of people that wonder, like, they don't have assets. They don't know the first thing about building an asset. Most people are like, they're already like, okay, well, the job market's horrible. And then people come into play and they keep talking about a recession-proof skill. And it's like, now skills are easily more and more acquirable. AI is able to get them. And I think you guys could actually speak more to what are the principles of a recession-proof person, not a recession-proof skill. So how do you become a recession-proof person?
And are you a marketer right now?
Look at you. Well, that's exactly where I wanted to go, because someone's going to say, well, you need to be in gold, or you need to be in cryptocurrency, or you need to be in real estate. None of those are going to be true. For this recession, I think it's going to be completely and totally different, but there's a massive opportunity. So this is what you and I were talking about. There's multiple pendulums that are swinging that we ought to be aware of. And one of the big ones, I mean, debt is going to be swinging. So access to credit's not going to be the same. So building assets based on credit, all assets built based on credit, if you look at the stock market, the bond market, and real estate, they're all going to have problems because they were all built from the 70s to now on credit. So those are going to be unstable. But the sides that are opening up is from the 70s to now, education has been consolidating and business has been consolidating. We've been going from, everybody owned a mom and pop store to there are 3 big major brands that employs everybody. That trend is reversing. So if you ask me how to become a recession-proof person, it's not mindset, although those are all derivatives of it. It's never been easier than now to build a business. And if you look back, the only asset I've ever found that has survived all forms of recession, all forms of inflation and deflation, all forms of economic upheaval is having a machine that prints money. And without a printing press, that is called a business.
Got it. So business is a form of a printing press.
Is a form of a printing press. And if you can have a business that provides value through that time period, it doesn't matter if the currency changes, it doesn't matter if prices change, it doesn't matter and all that, because you have the source of the currency.
And then as long as you do the right thing with the money, then you will have a runway. So you're building up this moat.
And the better you get at building assets inside of that business that then produce more currency, more money, you then can take excess money and create assets outside of your business. But the thing that I think people have been lied to, I know I was lied to. I thought I had to go get good grades and get into a good college and then get a good job and have a good career, and that's how I was going to become wealthy. But unfortunately, there aren't any assets there. Yeah. I'm building someone else's asset with my time and my intellectual property and my thinking and my work. Mm-hmm. Whereas now, so the order was work, get money, pay taxes, spend and save a little bit, and then go get wealthy. But the true approach to it should be build a business first and then reinvest in that business and increase the value of that business. And then with that, we then go and we build assets with it.
So getting a job should be seen through the lens of I'm going to acquire the skills. So some people are like, I don't know how to build a business. What do I do? Go find someone that you feel like has the best chance of teaching you the skills where you can develop
Correct.
those, and then you can build your own, or you can partner in and be an owner in the business.
Yep.
Right.
The first thing you have to build is a valuable skill set. You have to be worth something to the world.
Yeah.
And if you have nowhere else to start, get really, 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 really good at something. It doesn't even matter what it is. Taylor, you've seen people make money in the craziest ways.
Oh yeah, dude.
Right? There's somebody in TWC that makes money teaching hoarders how to declutter their house and does multiple seven figures.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't matter what you get good at, just get unbelievably good at something.
Yeah.
Then there's a business to be built on top of that. Then the second level of skills is learn how to coordinate resources, whether that's people, capital, time, technology, whatever you're going to then stack on the thing that you're really good at.
So I just popped this in, most valuable skill sets to learn right now. Digital literacy and technology, so understanding digital tools, platforms, technologies. AI would be included in this, but so would like tech, like developing software. Data analysis, this is interesting. Data analysis and interpretation. So the ability to collect, analyze, and interpret data. Cybersecurity. So Augustine he's in Chamber as well. He runs a cybersecurity organization where they're teaching people how to go get big corporate contracts. Dude's doing millions of dollars a year. Let's see. Communication skills. Myron Golden talks a lot about.
Yep.
What does he have? Those 4 levels.
Levels of wealth.
What are? Do you know what those are?
Labor, management, thought, and communication, I think.
Okay. And thought and communication might be 3 and 4 or 4, or
I
might be
flipped around.
He's actually got some really good IP on communication. So this is saying like communication skills, leadership, management, and then entrepreneurial skills. What's funny is like all of these kind of stack up to entrepreneurial skills at the end. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, develop something that is valuable in the marketplace, and then develop. To me, the entrepreneurship. That's just the skill set of coordinating assets, right? Coordinating the interaction, whether it's people, capital, systems, whatever that is. But if you just try to do that without a skill set, you need somebody or something with a skill set.
One more thing to connect this, and then I've got some more questions if I can continue going. This is an interview for me, I guess. Sorry, everyone. But it is important to realize that if you are in that place where you're just kind of like, I don't know. I don't have the skills right now, or I don't have the ideas. One thing that made it easier for me, I was putting myself through college at night. I was still working at the church, and my wife and I were like, we want to be wealthy, but there's no way. Like I know how to do music. So when you're like a musician, you're basically being like, yep, I'm going to be poor forever. Praise God. It's going to be amazing. And I was like, I have no idea what to do. And I crossed a threshold where I just realized whatever I choose, it is going to be difficult. If I choose to be broke, it's going to be difficult. If I choose to go learn a skill set that I can build a business, it's going to be difficult. And as soon as I accepted that there was going to be a season of my life that was going to be a grind and it was going to be very hard, everything got easier. So my expectations recalibrated, and it made it a lot easier for me to make it through trainings like this and to work the jobs that I needed to work. So I think that that's helpful. Any questions on this to keep us going?
Now, one of the things I know about you and Bradley, you as a business owner, I'm sure you have the same thought. Like, would either of you guys hire somebody based on skill set alone?
No.
No. What are those other components? Because there's people who are really, we all know they're very, very smart and very, very poor. What are some of the things that you would, one, look for in hiring, but also you would just give someone advice? Like, I know there's multiple things that you look for in who you hire. You probably have the same things. And it's not just skill set. What are some of those things that you would give advice for and things that you would hire for?
I mean, you teach a whole framework on this, so I'm sure you'll share that. But I think, everybody's excited about AI and it's going to replace people. I think it's going to actually create way more noise than signal. And so if you can get good at actually thinking and communicating, then we can leverage all of that. So I look for somebody who can, as simple as it sounds, somebody that can actually think. Because if I have to go through the work of coming up with the problem, what the solution is, and then communicating what that solution is to the team, I want the reward that comes from that. But if someone will come to me and say, I've noticed you have this problem, so they identify the problem, here are solutions that I believe we can put into place, then I would gladly give them a slice of that pie. So it's not just having technical ability and sitting there and telling me, that's like back to communism, why it doesn't work is they had skills and well, without me, nothing's going to work. Well, no, it's capital is what makes everything work, and then thinking and taking risks. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I think the ability and the willingness to learn is more important than what you learned. So there are some people that have, I've hired these people where they're fresh out of, some of them didn't even go to college. They're fresh out of an internship and they're deciding what they want, but you can tell they are driven, they're willing to work hard, and they have this curiosity. I'll bet on that person because I know that if they need to learn something, they're going to learn it. And there's almost this ever increasing value that they're going to be accruing over time. The worst person in the world to me to hire is someone who feels like they are entitled because of something they did years ago. And I think entitlement is it's.
You mean getting a little piece of paper that says you're smart? Somebody like that?
Yeah.
Can we offend some more people?
Yeah.
The most damaging thing, I think, to somebody's progression to build wealth is the mandate that overtime starts at 40 hours.
They're trying to lower
They're trying to lower it to 35 hours.
35, yeah.
But there is a compounding effect that you only start to become valuable at 40 hours. The 41st hour is orders of magnitude more valuable than the 40th hour that you worked. And if you work for 40 hours and stop, you've just begun to start to actually create value. And those that have amassed massive fortunes or become expertly good at something continue beyond the 40th hour to then really truly develop expertise. So you have to find something that you enjoy going beyond that 40th hour and you continue to spend time in. Because that's where the true depth of expertise is built, and that's where you differentiate yourself. That's where you have much more leverage in the solutions that you provide or the value that you can create. So don't stop at 40 hours.
Somebody asked me the other day at an event, they were like, my team's over capacity and they're missing deadlines and things like that. How do you deal with that? And I was like, over capacity? I don't agree with that. And the room they were kind of like, what does that mean? I think I had said it again on the call yesterday. I was talking about capacity. Philosophically, I think that every incredible organization is filled with people who are all over capacity. Because capacity is
well,
a
it's the adage of
construct.
how do you get something done? You give it to somebody who's busy.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Capacity is designed to be increased. Covey had this idea on like production versus production capacity. And the job is to increase your production capacity so that you can produce more without it tripping off the burnout sensors. And so really you just get smarter, you get more efficient, you just get better. And entitlement works against that. Entitlement is actually this idea that, I am worth X, Y, Z because of something that I've done prior. And I think the attitudinal aspect is more important than anything else. Does that make sense?
It does. How would you level set expectations for somebody that, let's give an example of somebody who has high skill, low attitude, or low skill, high attitude or experience? How would
Somebody
you level
has
set expectations?
high skill, low attitude. I'm gonna be like, you go work somewhere else and you be a pain in the for them. I don't think that there's ever been a great example where I've hired somebody with great competency, but then the attitude and the culture was so messed up. I think attitude is probably my number one hiring. So we have this triangle: attitude, competency, experience.
Nice.
Attitude at the top, because attitude is the most important. If I cannot get along with you, I do not want to pay you.
And I wish I remember who it was, but somebody in a chamber event, we were talking about that. And I was having this conflict. I had somebody with a bad attitude but amazing skill set.
Yeah.
And she reframed it for me and said, somebody with a bad attitude and amazing skill set, you need to label them what they really are, which is a terrorist. They are terrorists. And what do you do with terrorists? You shoot them.
You execute them.
You don't negotiate with them at a minimum.
They're
right?
pretty skilled people if you think
But
about it. Yeah.
that's the hard part, is they can hold you hostage with skill set.
Yeah.
But attitude. So in the long run, it's attitude all day long.
This is great. This is a great section even for business owners who are just like who do you look for? If you want to, hiring is a game of betting on undervalued assets.
And that's the trend that I believe is reversing, is we've been taught. So even if you're a business owner and you exited the mold of school and grades and work performance and all of that kind of stuff, you're still leaning into the old concept of I have to go find somebody that is certified and good in this type of a thing. Mm-hmm. And that trend is reversing. And what we've said is a skill set is no longer a skill set, because AI can do it, a software can do it, right? All of that's being replaced. And so we have to look for a more valuable skill set in this reversal. And if we play in this change of the tide, in this recession that's here or coming, and we keep playing by that rule of I have to hire college graduates and go through a resume process and all this kind of stuff, you're going to get sunk.
Yep.
But if we can move to where skill set really is, which is ingenuity and thinking and drive and attitude, those become the assets that we want inside of our businesses that are going to get us through to this next piece.
Which is a new frontier, by the way,
Completely new.
Like human analytics, psychometrics. I think a lot of young people who are wanting to get talented at something, you should start studying psychology and start learning emotional intelligence. And those things have a way of putting you in the right rooms, because people will just remember you and they like you. The social media has, in some ways, it has inserted big problems with people and status, like we're addicted to it. But there is great value tribally in just being liked. People don't hate you, and that opens up opportunities.
Well, if you ask me the biggest trend that I would want to trade on for the next 40 years inside of skill sets, right? In 2004, Google launched, and everybody says that was being the information age. I wouldn't call it the information age. I would call it the information of the result age. Because when you type something into Google, what does it give you?
A result.
A result. So we got trained that I need a result. Because before Google, if you had a question, what did you do? You just walked around with a question. You had no way to get an answer to it. You just wondered. I wonder about that. Yeah. But then we got trained that there's results. And so the world shifted toward, you have a question, I give you a result. What happened to marketing? It was promise a bigger result than my competitor and try to get somebody in, and we'll trade off of that. That trend is reversing to, instead of speed to result, it's speed to relationship. Because now people want to say, okay, great, I know that you can give me a result. Otherwise, well, of course, the entire world can give me a result. But are you going to be there to then answer the next question for me? And the next question, because the work that now I have to, and social media has made this hard. The fact that we're all antisocial in the world now, we don't have to talk to people. The hard thing to get is a trustworthy relationship.
Yep.
That's at a premium. So I'm not going to spend my time investing in somebody that I don't want to have I don't just want a result from somebody anymore. I want a relationship with somebody.
Yeah. We've done this training before, I think inside of TWC, where it's the competitive advantage element. Like how do you take market share? You can make something faster. You can make something better, so the quality is increased. You can make something safer. You can make something more certain. And now there's this fifth element of you can have a personality, where it's like, you see this with Tesla right now. Tesla's on a slope down. I think it's down 35% this year. And Elon drove a lot of Tesla's outsized valuations.
Yep.
And now he's less in the brand. And so the multiple on Tesla is
premium's coming off
the
of it.
price earnings is coming back down to what's probably more normal for them. And that's an example of like personality and likability and charisma is a legitimate driver now of enterprise value, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
It's part of the equation now.
Yep. Now I expect an ecosystem of results, not just a transactional result. And so if I was going to be preparing or trying to make a shift for something, is I would be moving to that end of it. Because the other shift I think that's happened is, and this really was born in 2008 and it's continued now, the recovery from recessions are not linear. They don't all move in the same direction. In economics, are referred to as a K-shaped recovery, if you've ever heard about that. That there's going to be a group that recovers, but then a group that never recovers from it. And there's going to be a divergence that doesn't then meet back up. And I think the K-shape to this recovery is the improvement or the recovery out of this will accrue to those who've figured out an ecosystem of business assets that creates a long-standing relationship with the client. We move to a more consultative type relationship, not a transactional relationship. And the people that are good at transactions will never recover from this.
Downhill slope.
That's the bottom side of the K. Yeah. And those that create an ecosystem will be the upside of that K.
Okay, back to money. Why does Dave Ramsey hate life insurance so much?
Because he doesn't understand it.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
I have one question before we hit that.
Okay.
It's a little controversial, but I think you should answer it really quick.
Okay.
When it comes to the modern marketplace, everyone has a different opinion on this, so this is just a controversial question. Do you guys think in the market today, is it good for people to do exactly what they were paid to do, no more, so they have a reason to get promoted in wherever they are and then get to a new level? Or is it better that they do way more than what they're paid to do? Does that get them promoted? What are your guys' thoughts?
We need to fix your friend circle, man. We need to talk about... I will never promote someone who's not doing more than what they're paid to do.
Ever.
Like, if all you're doing is what you're paid to do, from the way I look at it, then you don't have any extra capacity, so you're a bad bet for me.
You don't have any bargaining with me. There's no trade involved. There's no mutual improvement involved.
But I come from the church world, and the church world is you are doing the job for years for free, and then they're like, oh, well, let's go ahead and pay you for it. So that was my experience from like early childhood. But then getting into business, I have promoted people who were just doing the job, and then they failed miserably at the next job because it didn't fit inside their little scope of like what they viewed as their job, and it's just always worked bad for me.
So is it the person's job to ask for more money? Is it your job to bring it up? Like, who brings it up, and then how do you determine like how long is so long doing the same thing overachieving? Like, how do you philosophically
at my companies, people get raises at least once a year if they're doing a great job. In fact, the amount of money, I think this will be controversial as well, but I think you are paid exactly what you deserve to get paid.
That's the definition of how the whole idea of underpaid is impossible because you set your wage. You decided, because what you're actually trading is, okay, quick example, because this is fun. You've got a bottle of water, I've got a dollar bill. If we trade,
yes,
how much did I value the bottle of water?
$1?
No.
Okay.
why, if I valued it exactly $1, why would I trade for something I already have?
I
So
see.
by definition, if I gave you the $1, I valued the bottle, it's unknowable, but something more than $1. How much did you value the bottle of water?
Yeah.
Less than $1.
I see.
So if I'm trading my hours for my salary, I actually value my time less than my employer does, because my employer values my time more than the money that he has. So it's the employer that actually values your time more.
Ask more questions, Jake. Yeah.
So that is what has to be understood, is it's your employer that actually values your time more than you do. You're the one that doesn't. And so then this is where probably, like, how long do you stay being undervalued? Well, you start by saying I'm not undervalued. And then the more that I can produce, the more valuable my time becomes. And if my boss doesn't recognize it, one of two things is happening. You give raises to your team because they become more productive.
Yes.
Because you require it of them. So the enterprise moves forward and produces more, thus more can be paid. If I'm somewhere I'm not getting a raise, I got to ask myself the question, is this business going to be around? Because just like cash, the value of that business is going down every single day that it does not get more productive.
Yeah.
So eventually, if it can't pay you more, either you're not valuable or it's not valuable. And one of those things you got to change. So then the second is that now that I value my time, I can then take that and trade it with somebody else that does value it. But if I can't go to the marketplace and say, this is what I know how to do, this is what I have done, this is what I've already proven, what am I negotiating?
So how do you protect yourself from like really greedy capitalistic type of people who like they don't ever want to give raises? Do you just leave? That's the free market, right?
That's the free market. You just don't buy into the limited thinking of this is my only opportunity because it's in front of me.
We had this happen one time at one of the growing companies, Levels. And it was new. The company was maybe like 7 months old. And there was somebody who wanted to take over, I think it was a client services position. And they wanted like 230 grand because they were moving to Hawaii and something. And I was just like, look, go put out applications and see if you can get this job somewhere else. And if you can, then go work there. And he tried, and there was nobody paying that salary for his position. So sometimes as a business owner, you got to be willing to do this. Like, here's the market rate for this position. Here's where I feel like your value is. If somebody else will pay you more, go work with them, but I'm not going to pay you that because that's not where you're coming through. And then on the flip side, I've had people, Gabrielle started with me for like 60 grand a year. I think she got 4 raises in the first year. Mm-hmm. And then she's just kept getting raises, and then she got partnerships in certain companies. It's like, well, there's your answer right there. Like, you are earning it, and so we have to just give it to you. You know? Does that answer that question? Mm-hmm. Okay.
That was a good question.
What's the deal with Dave Ramsey?
So there's lots of rabbit holes we could go down. I think the most applicable answer to me is he's trying to solve a problem that you and I don't want to solve. He is trying to optimize, get a job, get a career, work for 30 years, and retire mostly broke.
But that doesn't work anymore, right?
No, it doesn't work anymore.
Okay.
But that's why he doesn't like the vehicle of life insurance, because he's trying to take the vehicle of life insurance, which was not designed to do that, and put it into that world. You know, to ignore the fact that all of his assumptions are completely disproven and incorrect about what the market actually, like 8%, 12%, like those aren't real numbers either. So he's using wrong data for his calculations. So saying he's doing math wrong, like Abbott and Costello. But fundamentally, he's trying to put people in a position with zero financial education, zero actual resources. He's not helping them to actually become wealthy.
Right.
He's just helping them not die broke.
Be in debt. And
that's it.
Yeah.
And if that's your entire vision, you're right. Life insurance probably isn't the vehicle for you.
So what is life insurance? You know, you have made so much content around life insurance. It is kind of confusing.
It's absolutely confusing.
Because you pay more than you make for a while, blah, 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 blah. Like, what is it and how does it work?
Well, the whole pay more than you make thing, every investment is that way. You put money into a business before it produces. You put money into real estate before it produces. So that's actually a good signal that it's something of value. I actually question the stock market a ton, that I put money in and the next day I have just as much as I put in. Like, that's not an investment. Something's wrong here.
Yeah.
So it should be that way. But the couple of elements to this, well, let's go social proof first, and then I'll go a couple of mechanisms of what makes this attractive.
Okay.
First off, millionaires and billionaires use it. They have since the beginning of time. The IRS has tried to outlaw it several times. So those are all really good indicators that this is something we should pay attention to. Yeah. So I have never met somebody worth, I'll say $10 million or more that isn't in love with life insurance. But Dave Ramsey doesn't talk to people that are worth $10 million.
Right.
Right? So it's just the wrong pool of people that you're asking, first off. So there's enough proof behind it from that standpoint. Like Jim Harbaugh, when he renegotiated his contract with, I don't know, whatever college he went to recently, it was a couple years ago. Do you know what he negotiated into his contract? That 50% of his compensation went into a whole life insurance contract. That's how we got paid. Executives, when you hear like the company tanks and they float off with their golden parachute, you know how those are funded?
Life insurance.
Whole life insurance.
Yeah.
So it's a proven vehicle in a world of people that are solving a different problem than the 30-year treadmill of saving and hoping that they can retire. So that's that side of it. But the couple of mechanics that I really like about it is, first off, it's not an investment vehicle. I'm not buying it for the returns. I'm buying it for its attributes. To acquire, same thing, that's why I buy a business, it's why I would buy real estate, is I'm actually buying the attributes that I know will produce a result that I want. And then after the fact, I add up the numbers and see what my return is. Does that make sense? Like that's a different way of thinking. Yeah. So the attributes that I want from this are, I want a place, I think about it like a reservoir. I want to store my profits somewhere. And the mistake people make is they store their profits in a business. But what's the one thing I know about a business that is 100% true? It will be worthless someday. Mm-hmm. So if I store all of my profits in my business, I'm guaranteed to go broke. This is why people build and burn, is they store profits in their business. You shouldn't store profits in your business. The second place people store profits is in real estate. Why would I store profits in real estate? If you have a paid off piece of real estate or a leveraged piece of real estate, it rents for the same amount of money. Doesn't make it, I can't charge a tenant more money because it's paid off. It doesn't matter. So economically, it performs exactly the same. But if I store money in real estate, I now can't eat it. I can't use it. I can't do anything with it. It's now trapped in that vehicle. Same with gold, or same with the stock market, or whatever. So to be wealthy, to be actually rich, is being able to utilize and have access to my profits. So this vehicle is the only vehicle that gives us every benefit we want out of a storage vehicle for our profits. So I use the analogy of, I live in Salt Lake City, and like 200 years ago, like a few Indian tribes lived there. Like almost no people could survive there. It's a desert. There's nothing there. Mm-hmm. And when people started to settle it, the very first thing they did is they went to the mountains and they built reservoirs. And now today, like I can look out my house at the valley and like 2 million people live there. More water doesn't fall. Same amount of water falls today as fell 200 years ago.
You're just capturing it.
They're capturing it and controlling it. Yeah. So that in April with the snow runoff, right? There's plenty of water for everybody to do anything they want. But in August, there's not. So if I can control my profits and use them when I want to use them, now I can actually increase my wealth. Yeah. So the life insurance policy gives us a place to store the profits that come from my business, store the profits that come from real estate. And then the reason that storage vehicle is much better than any other, when I put money in a bank, do they take your money and like put it in an envelope and write Taylor Welch on it, like hold it in the vault for you? No, they don't have your money.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. Or if I put it into the stock market, I now have to hope that that company does better with it than I would. I have to take risk on it. And then I have to hope that some other sucker comes along to buy it when I want my money back.
Right.
But in life insurance, it's the only contractual vehicle that by contract, I get a return on money that is not put at risk. Because when I give money to an insurance company, they are by law required to put it in what's called cash value. And they have to have it 100% reserved.
It's very regulated.
Very regulated.
Yeah.
They're actually forced out of business before that money can be at risk. So it sits there 100% accessible, meaning if I want my money back, they don't have to go liquidate an asset to do it. But now I get to earn the return off of their investment portfolio. Can you think of any other asset that you put money into it and not take any risk yet still get paid? Mm-mm. Life insurance is the only vehicle on the planet. So my money is completely safe, and then I get two returns. I get an amazing return on a portfolio, and I get profits from the most profitable business model on the planet, which is insurance.
If you're policy is with like a mutualized.
If you're in a mutual whole life insurance contract.
Yeah.
Not a VUL,
So
not an IUL, not
got
any of those others because you don't
Mass
get that.
Mutual, New York Life is mutualized.
Yep. One America, Penn Mutual. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's there's a dozen of them left.
Yeah. So I tell people sometimes like.
And just because I want to tie it off, and all those earnings are tax free, and they're completely protected from creditors. This is the extent of the asset. So again, my real estate's not protected. My business is never protected. This is the only place I can put my money that is 100% liquid, 100% tax free, and 100% protected. You went through FTC stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I had a client who his business partner made all the FTC mistakes. FTC came after them. They lost a 8-figure settlement with the FTC. The only 2 assets that they didn't touch, his primary residence and his whole life insurance policy. They took everything else. So found guilty by the FTC. Still couldn't touch his whole life insurance policy.
Which we were not, but
you were not guilty.
Yes,
but this guy was. I mean, it was his business partner, but he was an owner of the business, so he was pulled into it.
Yeah.
That's how strong the protection is in this. So that's why I want whole life insurance. Yeah. I will make my fortune with my business, and I will perpetuate my wealth and beat inflation and do all those things with my real estate. But where I store my profits as a reservoir to be able to access them and protect them is a whole life insurance policy.
How early do you think somebody should get into that? Because is it something where because you can get like $1 million policy and just put like a couple $100 a month into it.
Yep.
How early do you think is appropriate?
So I work with business owners. So I'm going to speak to the business owner side of this.
Okay.
Once your business is stable and you are not, what do you call it? Bootstrapping the business and feeding the business, that's when you should start. And the sooner you start, the better. It's like, I ask anytime a business owner's like, I can't afford to save that money. I can't put it in, the business needs it. I'm like, well, just don't be lazy. How about? Because I asked them, I was like, do you have a mortgage payment? They're like, yeah. Well, how much is it? $5,000. Why is it $5,000?
Yeah.
Because you decided that you wanted a business that could do a $5,000 mortgage and you did everything. What if you just turned the thermostat up?
Yeah.
And just said, I demand a business that can do $5,000 and put $2,000 into my insurance policy. So the sooner we can get ourselves to a point, because there is a point in time where you're not in control of that. You haven't created something of value to where it's stabilized. But as soon as it's stabilized, I tell business owners 20% of their profits should go to whole life insurance from as soon as they're profitable. And you build that muscle. And there's no downside to it because if I need the money, I can still get it.
Yep. Nice. Okay. That was
that's
brilliant.
When I do it.
You're a pro.
And why 20%? Well, the Bible says 20%.
Does it?
Well, how much was in Egypt? Not Jacob, but
Joseph.
Joseph. How much did Pharaoh have to put away? 1/5 of the harvest. So that's why I follow that principle. Put away 1/5 of your harvest. Because is a drought coming?
Yes.
A drought is always coming. That's the lesson from that story, is a drought is always coming. There will always be times of plenty and there will always be times of famine. So put away 1/5 so you have it accessible for the famine.
Yeah. Genesis 41:49. It's 1/5 of all the grain.
1/5 of all the grain
was stored away. So, okay. That's super interesting. So what he says is that you should just get term insurance and invest the difference into mutual funds.
Gross.
I don't understand mutual funds. Are you in any mutual funds?
I don't have one single penny in the stock market.
Okay.
Not one.
Is all of yours in whole life?
I believe you can become completely financially independent with 3 assets. Your business, whole life insurance, and real estate. Okay. That's it. That's all you need. Everything else, like you, is a hobby that you choose to monetize. If you day trade, or you do stocks, or you do crypto, or you do currencies, or whatever else, that is all a hobby that happens to pay you. But true wealth are those 3 assets. You can do everything you need with those 3 assets.
What's the difference between like whole life and, or is it the same like IBC, infinite banking concept? Like what's the juxtaposition?
Same vehicles, different utilization methodologies.
Okay.
And to me, the infinite banking world starts to take a left turn, gets confusing because they try to make the policy more than what it really is. It doesn't actually create the wealth. It's not the engine. It's the turbocharger. And without the engine, it doesn't really do any good. And so they try to add a lot more complexity or a lot more options that sound really good that just are not necessary. So again, it's the reservoir where we store our capital, we store our wealth to either grow our business or then transfer it into another asset.
Got it. Do you have a link we can grab from you in case people want to talk to you about this? Because I've just for those wondering, like I sent Brad a policy a couple weeks ago because you know more about it than I do, but maybe we can get a link from you so if people want to get life insurance or if they want to talk about it, they can connect with someone on your team.
Yes, I should have a link. I don't have a direct link. The best would be to, I'm communicating all of this through something brand new that we launched, Commentary on Wealth. So Brad at Sovereign Entrepreneur. I know that's a tough one.
We'll get it all. We'll put it in the
out there.
Is that okay, Jake?
And then in there is all the direction of where to go.
Okay, got it. So a business, whole life insurance, and
real estate.
So only right now, are you kind of like, well, let's just wait on real estate? Like, are you buying right now? Is it a weird time to buy?
If you're buying correctly, it's still totally fine.
Okay.
Because I don't speculate. I don't try to guess. I don't try to pick what's happening now. So like those that thought Airbnb was the next biggest thing, like they're hurting right now, right? The way, if you structure an investment properly, it should perform in any market. That's the definition of wealth. If it doesn't, it's not that it's bad, it's just you have to pay attention to it so this becomes a hobby or a job or a business, right?
Yeah.
So no, I've paused my real estate because I want to be more liquid right now. Because I want to go into this. I mean, it's kind of counterproductive to what we just talked about, inflation. In the short run, you want to be liquid. In the long run, you don't.
Yeah.
So I'm building some short-term reserves. So if you're not very liquid, I would say take a pause on investing and build your war chest so that you're ready. Like there are entire real estate funds. Like we work with a group that has raised $20 million in the last year or 18 months, and they have not placed a penny of it. They are just waiting. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting liquid. But that doesn't mean if you don't have any assets at all, you'll be better to place something, because I have assets that are benefiting from the changes and I'm getting liquid.
Well, whole life benefits from the rates being higher.
Oh, it's all, they've been begging for it. Yep.
And I think the concept I've sort of used is like, okay, emergency funds are good. We want to have emergency funds, but I just built an emergency fund in one of my policies.
That's where it should be stored.
Yeah.
Why would I store it in a bank? They're not on my side.
Yeah.
I don't have guarantees around that. Yeah, people would be blown away at how much money I don't have in the bank.
Yeah.
Now I have my war chest of where I can go get it, where I'm in control of it.
Yep.
We could go into the whole banking
like
system.
a business bank. I think the deviation I'll have on is business. I like to have like 6 months of cash on hand for the business, but then for my personal emergency fund. But you can put a
key man policy, and it can be a business asset.
Same thing.
Yeah.
100%.
So I calculate reserves and then determine where to keep them. They're two separate things,
Yep.
right? So yes, a business needs 6 months of their minimum operating expenses accessible.
Yeah.
Where to keep that, I want to work a business to where they keep 3 months in a bank and 3 months in policies.
Got it.
That's where I want them to
And even bank is like, that can be a high yield.
That can be a high yield savings account, something in the financial institutions, because the problem, but it's a good thing as well, is it's stickier to access my cash value. So I want something that I can make payroll and I can move through and I don't have to be chasing it. I don't want to create a ton of work. And then on the personal side, we start at 6 months. I'm at a year trying to build 18 months just because, again, of what I want to be flexible with. I really want a business owner at a year of their annual expenses in reserve. But then again, we keep only 3 months in the banking system and the rest over in our policies.
Does this make sense, bro? Do you have any life insurance?
Nope.
Let's get you some, bro. When do you think the rates are going to come down? Like we know your opinion on whether they should.
I hope they don't.
But when do you think they're going to come down?
I think we've got 2 years.
You don't think they're coming down?
I don't think they're coming down. Inflation readings are not there. The lies of what employment is are high enough that they're not feeling the pressure of having to do it. So I've seen the direction of the news cycle shift away from trying to indicate where things are going to go And like you said, people haven't freaked out. Everything hasn't crashed yet, so they don't need to pander to anybody. So they're gonna chase other squirrels and leave that one if it gets much worse. So I think they've figured out somehow to sort of keep everything in float until the election, and then nothing really changes right after that because they've got 4 years to then fix it. So I think it's 2 years out.
So the problem will be with the Biden administration because the president's not supposed to weigh in on these things, but he's already weighing in on them.
Right.
How much Powell seems to be the personality that's just be like, oh yeah, cool, well we'll hold it forever. He's pretty adversarial with like,
we hope.
Tell me what
don't
to
get
do.
into my thing. I'm supposed to be independent and operate under that. Now we all know that he's not, but I really think they're playing off of, they want to see other indicators move before this one. And the big one is like unemployment is still being reported as good. And so until that's usually the one that they cut rates hard and quick is when we see massive unemployment and stuff. So that's going to be,
Senator
I think,
Warren
the bigger
is trying to
signal.
use that every time he testifies. She's
exactly.
like,
we're fine. We're exactly where we need to be. And the actual inflation rates have come back up. They came down, and now we've got 3 months in a row of up, which makes them all nervous. And again, the big narrative is things aren't affordable, right? Yeah. Shrinkflation is what Biden likes to talk about right now, all that kind of stuff, which says we're going to try to work on inflation instead, which is keeping rates where they are. And again, real estate hasn't crashed. The stock market hasn't crashed yet.
Well, like how would real estate crash if the supply is so messed up?
So that's what's a couple things interesting in the real estate market. The areas that were bubbles, so it wasn't one mass bubble.
Right.
So there's a bunch of people in houses that are trapped there because they have 3.5% mortgages. So they're not going to move. And then we have an undersupply of like affordable housing. So those aren't going anywhere. But people have been wildly speculating on Airbnbs. And now if you've been following that trend at all, like that whole thing is blowing up.
They're all for sale.
They're all for sale now. Yeah. So that's gonna come down. Commercial real estate syndications are getting kicked in the teeth. And it hasn't even started yet because that debt hasn't turned over. So that was a big speculative market.
A lot of them are starting this year.
Dude, I mean, funds before they sneezed and would raise $5 million that they would need for it. I've got 3 people right now just begging. They've been trying to raise for a year on a $9 million raise. Like it's not, so that is all unwinding. But that doesn't affect the Biden voting population right now. So no one cares about rich people. So who cares? So they're not going to change after that. So there's going to be pockets of it. But what people don't realize, and this is the trend I wanted to capitalize on, in what went under the radar is in 12, 13, 14, Wall Street figured out how to get on Main Street for the first time ever. So institutional money figured out how to buy real estate for the first time, like single family homes for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. And then when COVID came in, they paused and they haven't come back in. But there's billions waiting that as soon as they hit their metrics again, they are going to deploy. And this may be the last time. Like if you think about the stock market, it's become almost fully institutionalized. Almost all the shares of the stock market are owned in mutual funds or institutions. Like very few people, the percentage of the market owned by you and me is very small. That's what's going to happen with real estate now because Wall Street figured it out. So they're going to institutionalize it. And if you look at the run up in the market from like the 80s, like mid 70s, when it started to be institutionalized, it only went one direction until we hit saturation. And then it's gone sideways. So most of the run up in the stock market was institutional, not actual production.
Yeah.
And the same is going to happen with real estate. It's going to be fully institutionalized.
Do you think it'll crash or will it just kind of stay?
I don't think it'll crash. It should crash. But I think they're going to go Japan style to where it's just long, flat forever. Because then they get to say, nope, nobody lost any money. Yeah. But then it's 20 years and we're still in the same spot. So we just lost time.
I mean, certain pockets are going to...
There's always going to be...
It's so like geographical.
Exactly.
You know?
It's a fractured market. So like I said, Airbnbs are in trouble. Commercial syndications are in trouble. Strip malls outside of Wichita, Kansas are in trouble. Those types of things. But the bread and butter single families, the mainstay home, any market where people reach, like I think another place is you're going to see a bunch of like tech people who got their first job out of college at $120,000 and we're planning on getting up to 180 within 2, like that whole track, that's all disappeared, but they all went and bought houses planning on that. So there's going to be another sliver of the market of like $650,000 houses that people 1 year out of college bought because they thought they had this runway that aren't, their stock grants aren't worth anything. So they don't have money to pay for this. So there's going to be some of that going on.
Yeah.
Outside of pockets like that, I think in general, it's going to stay.
So you think they'll hold for another 2 years and then start coming down, to like 2 or 3 and stay there?
Rates?
Yeah. Because that would put mortgage rates to like 4 or 5.
Yeah, probably.
And we're at like 6.5, 7.5.
6.5, 7.5 right now. So yeah, I think it'll come down to like, I think over the course of 2 years, we'll get back to 5% mortgage rates.
Nice.
I think that's where they want it.
Okay. Last question, unless you have some things you want to talk about. You good? You still interested?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
I don't really care because I'm interested.
I love this conversation. Who do you think is going to win the election?
Oh, man.
Because here's why I ask you this.
Yeah.
Money and political structures are inextricably linked.
They are.
And like
they absolutely are.
If you're going to become a master of like the money game, you got to, at some point you get into fiscal policy that leads you kind of into like bureaucracy, and then you're back into politics every time.
Yep.
So you studied a lot of this.
Well, and that was how I got here was I started in politics and I didn't understand the economy well enough. So then I studied economics, and then I realized to be a player in the economy, I actually have to start a business. And so then I got into the business world. So I actually came through that door.
Okay.
Before I pick winners, I'm gonna state my opinion on politics, and then I feel like I can pick a winner after that. Okay. Most people think there's a spectrum of left and right, and there are in some ideologies. But when we look at the actions of the politicians, what they actually do is they're not two ends of the spectrum. Take those and pull them down into a circle, and they sit right next to each other. Because the actual narrative, because we're talking money, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about policy or anything like that. We're talking money. So when it comes to money, they're the same party. Because both of them say, I'm going to take all your money, and then they're only fighting over what they're going to spend it on. Nobody is saying, well, maybe we shouldn't just take everybody's money from them. They're both totally fine with that.
Yeah.
And it's just a fight over, do we spend it on the border or do we spend it on poverty or whatever, right?
War, do we send it to Ukraine?
That's the only conversation. So when it comes to monetary policy, they're both the same party. So who do I think will win? Well, let me say who I wish would win.
You're going to say RFK Jr.
RFK Jr.
Yeah.
I think it would be the most healing for the nation. It would be, because pendulums just swing further and further each way. And if we want to know why did we get Biden, well, it's because we got Trump. Well, why did we get Trump? Because we had Obama. Like, these are just pendulum swings that just get more and more extreme as we've gone. If we look at the trail of who's been president, the one has been more extreme than the prior. Yeah. So I just want to stop the swing of the pendulum, and I think RFK would do that. Whether I agree on all this stuff or not, like there's whole other things.
But it's
to pull
almost
in there.
impossible for him to win.
It is impossible for him to win.
He's...
I mean, he did his own, presidential whatever State of the Union. He got like 1 million views. So like, no, he's dead. He can't win. But that's who I wish would win, to just slow the pendulum. Because again, they're all the same party anyway.
Yeah.
So I think what the country needs, I think Trump would fix a lot of things. So I don't know whether he'll win or not. I really, dude, it's so crazy. I don't know. Do you think I guess the question is, this will get us canceled.
Probably not.
It depends on whether it's an honest election or not.
Yeah. Gotcha. So Biden.
Yeah. No, I think Trump. I'll place my bet on Trump.
I mean, he smashed Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
When he
And I think the people the swing vote that went to Biden are the ones that are frustrated enough to go back the other way and be like, oh, it was actually better the other way. I didn't want all the rest of the crazy that came with this.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna go like the left has moved further left than a lot of people, more than the right has moved farther past people who are on the right.
Yeah, it was crazy to me to watch how fast the war machine started up again.
Yeah.
It was just like, bam, we're in a war. I was
Do you really want to know why?
Yes.
there was no one to take the money. They had to print the money. We just said we tripled the money supply. There was nowhere for it to go because no one was buying houses because rates were too high. There was no economic stimulus. There was no reason to stimulate the economy anymore. So if I can't stimulate the economy and nobody will borrow it, how do I get money out?
Yeah.
War. So if you look at wars, all of them follow in high inflationary times. If you can track wars based on money printing.
Have you read The Creature from Jekyll Island?
Yeah.
And his assessment of even World War II and how it was, you'll probably know this better than I am, but like, I think it's the
Louisiana Purchase?
No, the boat that was a British passenger vehicle that was sunk. That
right.
And like his take on this is basically that it was a setup. It wasn't even Germany that like did it, and that was required to pull us into the next money
cycle
printer.
of They have to have a crisis, and if there isn't one, we will manufacture one. Because if money stops moving, like we are in inflate or die. That's where we are. That's the point of no return that we passed, is we can't unwind this. And we can't unwind it comfortably, so it's inflate or die. And so if like the pandemic was amazing because they could just send money, there was a reason for them to get money. Like they mailed business owners checks. Like, do you remember that? Like,
yeah.
I got over $1 million for just because I owned a business. They just gave it to me.
Yeah.
But now we don't have a crisis, so we need to manufacture one. That's why it went so fast.
So you think Trump would win, but you think it probably would go to Biden. Are you comfortable sharing who you feel like would be a better candidate?
I liked a lot of Ron DeSantis. I wouldn't mind if he was in. I was kind of hoping he would do better than he ended up doing. Again, that's the unfortunate
he pissed
thing
off
of
the MAGA crowd.
Trump. Right, exactly. I just don't think they handled that one as well as I think they could have.
It was a bad campaign.
I stopped really believing that the system can be fixed through a vote when like after Ron Paul. Like we need a Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Like that's what we need somebody who has a set of principles that they are going to stand by and say, this is what's going to fix. Like, are you following what's going on in Argentina?
No, but it's funny
Javier
that
Milei?
you linked principles and politics together.
Exactly.
That
and
exist.
that's the problem is we're to the point where I'm going to do whatever needs to be voted upon.
I have followed the Argentina thing.
But we need somebody like that will just be honest and say, there isn't any more money.
And people are accepting it well.
Dude, this last month, they posted the first budget surplus in like 50 years. And it was only 4 months after he got put in.
Yeah, but
so it works. But somebody has to just say, this is the principle, there is no more money.
Yep.
And this is what we're going to do about it.
Didn't the population took it rather well? Like they appreciated that, and it was I would say chaotic.
So I want to find a candidate that is going to play those cards correctly and get everybody on board of, look, there isn't any more money. This is going to be hard for a while, but the people that are making this, like, until the voting populace, until the people of the United States wake up and realize that the government is the problem, then it won't change. Because we keep hoping, well, I'll vote for somebody else. I'll vote for somebody else and we'll fix it. No, they're the problem and we have to control them and put them back and have the people in control again and be willing. Because when not to get too personal, but anytime you go through your own personal financial shock, what do?
I learn and get smarter and better.
And you cut back. And you go through the pain of cutting back because you know that will then position you for the next level of growth. You've done this in your business. You've done this personally. People are willing to do that.
Yes.
But
because it's survival.
Only when it's necessary. Only when they believe that that's actually required. But I think people in general still believe that there'll be a white knight that'll ride in on the horse and save all of this. Yeah. When we just say, no, there isn't. We actually just need to do it, and we'll go through the pain of doing. That's why the Argentines have accepted this. Yeah. Is they got back to the roots of, like, before the Socialist Communist Party took over there, they were like the 4th richest nation in the world.
Wow.
And they've destroyed that wealth for the last 50 or 60 years. Yeah. And he called back to that time. He's like, remember, like, we can actually be wealthy and productive and have that, but we have to be willing to go through this to be able to do it.
Love it.
Anyone that will do that is who I would vote for.
Got it. If there's someone who's watched this and they made it through the whole thing, which is phenomenal,
Congratulations.
congrats. But they feel like they're not positioned well to like become wealthy. What are like 3 or 4 books you would recommend them to start?
Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt is a great start to just like understanding what's going on. Don't jump into like von Mises or those types of things. The Mises Institute is a great resource for stuff. Like it has basic breakdowns of what's going on. And actually, it's crazy it sounds, End the Fed by Ron Paul is another really good one that is very approachable, that we understand how money and monetary policy is moving things inside of the economy. You can go to like Creature from Jekyll Island, but that's still a read. And that's still a lift. Economics in One Lesson. If I think of some other, I actually have a list. Now that you said that, we'll put it in the link. I created,
Great.
So in as we headed into COVID, everybody was asking, what do we do? How do we survive this? So I actually put a reading list together of about 30 books, organized kind of by topic,
Yes.
and put it in there. We'll give that to everybody.
Get
So we
that to me.
we talk about money, we talk about politics, we talk about personal development, a bunch of stuff. It's all there. We'll
I
give
love
them
it.
that.
Thanks for your time, dude. This is great.
Dude, hey, this was fun. I hope everybody enjoyed what we talked about.
Did you fall asleep one time?
I know I had fun.
He didn't fall asleep. He's gonna leave a comment on this video. We'll see. All right, you're the man. See ya.
Thanks.